Welcome to the Grief Pod with Venetia Quick. This is a weekly podcast which looks at every aspect of something which has or will at some point affect us all. And that is grief. Whether you've lost a loved one or about to lose someone you know, or perhaps you're simply trying to help someone navigate their grief and don't know where to start or what to say, then perhaps this is the podcast for you. Each week I'll be bringing you different stories and experiences of loss, love, hope and at times humour. Gina Daly first became a fully fledged food influencer alongside her husband Carol in 2019 when their first food diary went viral on Instagram. The couple brought out their fourth cookbook, The Daily Dish Air Fryer, just recently. It's been a massive success, I think, so far. But all the success of the four books has been set against loss and bereavement. And Gina joins me today to tell me her story. And I think it's also really nice because it's one of hope as well. Thank you for coming in,
Thank
Gina.
you so much for having me.
The fourth book. That's very exciting.
It is. It's a bit surreal at the same time because of just how things started. And I wasn't a foodie. I wasn't into cooking. Yeah. And now all of a sudden I have not one, not two, not three, but our fourth one. So it's it's
in very quick succession.
Yes,
as
very
well.
quick. So
how did it all, I suppose, start about? Because it started with your diary, your food diary.
Yeah. So it just started with me posting my breakfast, lunch and dinner. I was kind of on a weight loss journey and I'd lost 8 stone and I'd started to regain some weight, and I was like, if I'd seen people doing it and it was, it seemed like fun, it was interesting, and I was like, that's something that I could get into. Even if my sister watched or my dad or somebody, just one person, it was, it was for me. Mm-hmm. And I was posting a few bits and pieces, and then I started posting meals, and my food kind of got a bit monotonous when I was in slimming clubs and stuff, and it was just the same old boring food. And I was like, how can I reimagine this food? So having the same ingredients but just maybe making it into a burger or something like an Eddie Rockets or something like that. So that's what I started to do. So kind of making fakeaways.
So the things people were missing.
Yes, and putting a twist on them and making them healthier and making them easy to make as well, and the ingredients were accessible. So that's when things kind of snowballed, and the more I post, the more reaction I got, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. What else can I do? What else?
Did you find that helped you as well?
Yeah,
along
absolutely.
the way?
It did, because I was so. I think when you're in slimming groups and stuff, you're away for you're only in it for like an hour. And you're away from it then the rest of the time, and it's up to you then to be accountable. I do that with my fingers in the air and, keep track of things. But when you're doing it to an audience and online, you're like, okay, this is every day, and it keeps you in a linear
but it's also, you feel like you're not alone because
exactly.
you're doing it with somebody else,
and you're interacting with people, and people are in the same situation, people looking to start out on a journey, or giving advice. Not that I gave advice, I'm not in a position to give advice, but just talk to people and build a community. And I think that was the most lovely part of it, was a lovely community that
because it can be something that people feel very, I suppose, alone in, and they feel that it's one thing and they're sort of out of the loop, I suppose.
Yeah, and some people still have a stigma about it, losing weight or saying that they're going to a class or they're going to this to try and lose weight, and they don't want people to know. So they're watching this person online who's doing it, who's not afraid to speak about it. It's a perfectly, if you want to lose weight, you want to gain weight, you want to do whatever you want to do, you do it. So it was nice to have that.
And that all then turned into, I suppose, COVID came along, and that's when things really took off.
Yeah, so just before COVID, I remember getting a message saying, would you ever consider writing a cookbook? And of course I laughed and was like, yeah, right, I can't cook, I'm only learning as I'm going. And then there was a couple of those messages, and it was always from the same person. And then when I looked into who it was actually a woman called Deirdre Nolan from Gill. I was like, oh God, come back to me Deirdre. So it just went from there. She was like, I'd love to have a chat with you, maybe talk about writing a book of this style. She's like, I was in a slimming club and your name was just constantly going around, and people were making your dishes left, right and centre, and it'd be really good to just chat with you. So I had myself fully prepared for this meeting, and I'll sell myself and I'll be like, oh, and I'm great at this. And she just said, look, we love you. You are who you are. There's no, you're just Gina. Yeah. And you don't put on a front. You show things how it is. And we just really love to write a book with you. And I was told not to leave here unless you signed the dotted line. I was like, I didn't have to open my mouth. I was like, woohoo, yeah. And like I walked out of there on air. I was like, somebody believed in me like that. It was just such an incredible feeling. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm not an author. I'm not a chef. I don't know how to write a book. So the process started, and then wrote the book. It took me nearly a year. And it was a really enjoyable process. It was fantastic. It was tough going. And then the book came out on the 20th of March 2020, the day COVID. Everything shut down.
Wow, on that actual day.
On the day. But our pre-sales, that book, we had pre-launched it. So they like to do a little pre-sale beforehand to see how they know like how many books to be ordering or to be printing, etc., etc. And our book was the biggest selling cookbook ever in Irish history, the fastest selling cookbook. Wow. So we broke multiple records, and it was just like, who are we, and who are these people? Like, what's going on? Yeah.
But still, you in one way, it was the perfect time because everyone was at home, and up until that point, nobody really did sort of cooking online or showing you like the cook-alongs. That became a thing.
The kind
that
of
became
food
huge.
side of things on Instagram wasn't really big. Like there was the odd person doing a few bits and pieces, and people who were established a long time. And then all of a sudden people found themselves at home for the first time. Their favourite restaurant was closed. All the fast food places that they'd go or takeaways were all closed. So what do? You show them how to make it at home with easy ingredients. And the people that tuned in for that I don't think they were just tuning in for the food. They were tuning in for the company and seeing like, okay, we're not the only ones in this situation. We're not alone. And look, we can still enjoy it and still make the most of it. And that's how...
And people had the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. First time ever people were finding... And like messages over that whole period of time were always like, well, myself and my husband, it's our time in the evening, because that's what it was for me and Carl. It was our time in the evening to be Gina and Carl and not Mammy and Daddy, and realise that we still like each other. And we found that cooking and having a glass of wine was we could have a bit of crack, throw on some music, and that was how everybody else responded to it as well. It was like, we throw on the music now in the evening too. We even set a playlist. We were like, this is a playlist. Dance to this. It's a great bit of crack.
Because I think for a lot of people as well, it was such a lonely time that just to sort of have that company, albeit virtually,
exactly,
was nice. So COVID was really good. You got your name out there. You became very established in that time, but it also then personally became a very difficult time.
Yeah, there was, I think, I always say this, is like you have these really amazing highs, like bringing out this incredible book, and then you're hit with like really lows. And that seems to be a series, like that's a series of events that happen. So every book that we brought out, I was like, what's going to happen now? So like the first one came out, COVID hit obviously. My dad's partner passed away. He was with her for 20 years, and then my dad was alone in his house. He was down the country, and I found out I was pregnant. I had a miscarriage, and then my dad came to live with us. And so while I wanted to have those moments to myself, like COVID took so much away from everybody. And this is not just me saying, oh God, it took so much away from me. It took so much away from everybody, like doing hospital visits, whether it was me going to the hospital by myself to monitor my pregnancy, my dad's partner who was very sick, no one was allowed in to visit her, and people whose, parents and partners were all something was happening to somebody somewhere, and they didn't have the comfort of company or anyone was allowed in. So I kind of, being on social media, sometimes you feel like you have to tell everybody what's going on, and you have to be like, oh yay, the world is great and everything, let's all be happy and positive. There's times where I just disappeared because my life is just falling to shit,
and especially with something like that, with the miscarriage as well, and sort of being on your own. you know, is a
Yeah.
really...
It was, and I think because I was just about to turn 40, and we'd never planned on having any other children. And before I had my first daughter, 7 weeks before myself and Carl got married, I had an ectopic pregnancy, and I almost died on the way to hospital. So I was very lucky to survive that, and be here today talking to you. But I did lose, I lost fallopian tube, and I had to have blood transfusions, and there was a lot went on through that period of time. But my outlook on it was, okay, like obviously I grieved the loss of a baby, but I was like, I'm here. I'm still alive, because my first reaction was, oh no. Like,
was that conflicting for you?
It was very, very conflicting. It was a really hard one to kind of navigate in your head, because on one hand, you want to feel that, you know, you want to cry and you want to do all that. Yeah. I wanted to feel that way. But on the other hand, I looked and I was like, I've so much to live for. And we're only starting our life out. We're about to get married and we have a wedding coming up. And I remember the doctor saying to me, you mightn't be able to conceive naturally. It might be IVF. And of course, then that's another kick in the head.
And it's also a huge thing to sort of, I suppose, get your head around as you're about to get married as well, because that's the commitment.
Yeah, and we both knew we wanted to have children. But I am very positive, and I kind of put the positive side out, and I said, look, if it happens, it happens, and it will happen, and whatever route we have to take, whether it is IVF, whether it's adoption, whether it's whatever it is, we'll make it work. And 6 months after, the wedding went ahead, I was still bandaged up. I had my day, you know, and everybody's looking, God, she looks amazing, and I'm like so tired and I'm really sore, but it was the best day ever. It was an amazing day, and we said, look, let's just see how things go. And exactly 6 months later, I got pregnant with my daughter Holly, which was scary because I was so afraid of what might happen. And there was a tiny bleed, and I got checked out, and everything was fine. And that pregnancy went like all my pregnancies. I had everything, but I didn't care. I was like, I'm fine. The baby's okay. That's the most important. And then when I had Holly, I got pregnant when she was 18 months old after trying for 6 months. And I was like, we're so lucky. You know, we are so lucky this has happened for us. And then I had Ben, and then I was like, okay, I'm happy out. I'm done. I'm finished. Let's just call it a day. Now we have our boy or girl, and we have a lovely little family. But then when I got pregnant after when I had the miscarriage, it wasn't planned. It was just one of those things that happened. And when you're about to turn 40, and I was so lucky to get pregnant in my 20s. And I was like, oh gosh. I felt like something was really taken away from me. You know, it was like, this probably never happened. And the one thing that we never thought we wanted turned out to be the one thing that we really did want, another baby, you know. So that was so...
That must have been as well, sort of, when you lost the baby, such a difficult thing. I know people have said before, when they've had perhaps a surprise pregnancy and it hasn't gone to term, or there was complications, that there's an element of sort of guilt to that, because of the sort of like, oh no, this is what I want, and it's too late. I suppose I think in my head, because, and the circumstances surrounding it was like, found out I was pregnant, and we were like, oh my God, and the kids heard me say it, so they knew straight away. And we just went, oh, it's COVID. Look, you know, let's have a baby and it'd be great. And when I had a bleed again, and I just think I did have those with the other two. It should be fine. And I was in and out of hospital, and I think the thing that kind of messed me the most was that there was hope. They were like, oh, it looks okay, everything looks fine, we'll just give it another week. And I was on my own every time getting the scans. And then the final scan I got, they were like, look, it still might be a little bit early, your dates might be wrong, go home, we'll do your bloods to see if your levels have changed, and if we ring you, it means there's something, you're going to have to come back in. But if we don't ring you, it means everything is fine, and just come back in as usual next week. So I didn't get a call.
I didn't get a call, and I went back in then thinking, oh my God, this is amazing. And I spent that whole week going, oh, I'm so happy and I'm so lucky. And the nurse or the doctor was rushing through the pages, and he says, yeah, your HD or what is the HGV, I can't even think now, my brain's gone, not trucks, have dipped. So it is a loss. And that just hit me. Because
and you were on your own.
And I was like, oh, but I was told. And they were like, oh, we're so sorry, there's been a mix-up. And so I was just numb. I was just completely numb. And they said the options now are D&C, but it's going to be probably 6 weeks with COVID. And I was like, I couldn't. Unless your body, it was a miscarriage, so my body wasn't releasing unless your body does what your body's supposed to. But also
the time, the setting that you were in at home, and everybody's at home. So the kids are at home, so you don't even get that little space to grieve.
Yeah. So I said, well, what other option do I have? And it was medication. And I sat in a room on my own like this and just took it and drove home. And then it happened on the way home, and I just, it feels like it was yesterday. That feeling, like I can't, and I always say, I still haven't got over it, and I still don't know how to get over it. And it's like the one thing that always still eats me. Like I'll sit and watch the TV, and out of nowhere I'm like roaring, crying, thinking, oh God. And I don't know whether I'm sad for what happened or sad how it happened, or I don't know why I'm so sad. And I do know it's because of it was a loss.
Yeah,
but I think
maybe you didn't get the chance to even acknowledge
it was straight back to the house, to the kids, happy mammy, back online, happy mammy. And so maybe I missed my chance to grieve properly for it, and to actually realise it's okay to be really sad.
Yeah.
And you get people saying, oh sure, it wasn't meant to be. And the worst words,
or at least
and you'd be like, and you're smiling going, no. And what if the baby had something, and what if and I'm like, I wouldn't have cared.
And what I mean, obviously because COVID, we weren't seeing people as much. What were people's reactions, or did you even tell people?
No, I only told my sister, like my close family, and online I kind of just was still doing my cooking and still doing, and then just one day out of nowhere I was just so overwhelmed by it all, and I was like I'm smiling and I'm happy, and I have this sadness, and I have people that can understand and relate, and I wanted it, so I just did one post, and I actually wrote on it, I said I'll probably delete this later, just to say what had happened, and this is why I probably haven't been as present online, and why I haven't been around as much, and such an outpour of love.
What was the reaction?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. So many stories from other women who had gone through exactly the same thing in the same period of time or just before, all through COVID as well. So many people could relate to it. And I had so many conversations, voice notes, chatting to women and having a whinge and having a cry, and actually be able to talk to somebody and cry with somebody who's felt exactly the same ways as I did. And it was lovely. It was really lovely to just...
Did you find that quite cathartic?
Yeah,
in one way?
to feel it, to be able to feel it, because I don't think I felt it. I knew I was grieving, but I never, I just didn't feel it.
It just wasn't, it was new.
Yeah. It was just...
And do people still get in touch
with
you about that?
Yeah, all the time. I think when... I always try to be as relatable as I can. And I know, social media isn't always, the happy shiny place, and things aren't always real on it, but that's what I always try to do.
But there are some things
that try to keep it, and even now, I get messages from girls saying, I've just had my little boy or my little girl, I had a miscarriage the same time as you, and then that leads into a conversation. It's led into friendships as well. So people still do remember, and they still... and I remember when you were going through, and people, it's funny, it's a funny old world how people,
But again, it's sort of, I guess it's your relatability and the fact that people
feel they can
engaged
say that to me,
with you, and now this is a real life thing.
Yeah.
And the fact that you, I suppose, were honest and open, that people felt they could get in touch and feel they can get in touch, because it is still something, I think, that perhaps people don't talk enough about, or even if they talk about it, there isn't the openness, or even if they do talk about it, they're scared of what you were saying. People are going to react like sure, you have X and Y and you could go again and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it is. And it is still quite a taboo subject. People either... Especially
for guys as well.
Yeah. And that was one thing as well that I kind of felt I didn't want to... I was like, my body's going through this. My emotions are going through this. But Carl is also going through it too, and sometimes you can forget that side of things. There were times where I'd maybe lash out and be like, you don't know what it's like. And I remember one evening sitting on the couch and I was just absolutely devastated, and we'd been watching something which probably triggered an emotion in me, and he's like, what's wrong? And I was just like, just talking to him, I was saying, and I just feel like I'm just so sad. I'm so sad that we lost the baby. And then he started crying and he was like, I lost it too. And I was like, oh gosh, yeah, I know that. And then it was a moment for the two, and then it really woke me up to go.
And you feel for him as well, because he didn't get to go to the hospital.
No,
he didn't get to be part of that.
Absolutely destroyed
which,
him.
Looking back on, is so wrong.
So wrong. Yeah, the fact that there's so many doctors and nurses could be in a room with you. Go in, he was taking COVID tests, he was showing them, and they were like, sorry, no. And I think that was the hardest part, was just not being. He's like, all I wanted to do was just hold you and just say, look, we'll be fine. Yeah, and he couldn't.
After that and that loss, you did have another baby.
I did.
And he's gorgeous, Gene.
My little man,
looking
Gene.
at pictures of him.
Yeah. So we after that happened, I had my 40th birthday, and I was like, look, if it does happen, it happens, and we'll just play it the same way as we've always done. And I got pregnant 6 months. It's like it takes you 6 months to get pregnant.
Had you book out at that time?
We did a second book.
Yeah.
Come out at that time, and I think we're in the process of writing a third one.
Yeah,
my
so
brain
really
gets all fogged up. I'm like,
part and parcel. Yeah.
So my dad had come to live with us at that stage. We thought, like, he needs to be close to us. He can't cope with it on his own, so I needed to be the mammy for him. I needed to look after him. So it was great having him there, because it was the first time that he was around the grandchildren all the time, and they loved having him around. And I remember saying to my dad, I'm pregnant, and he's delighted with life, and he's like, I'm going to get to, see you, and all the time. And when I got pregnant, it was a very similar situation. I started to bleed again, but I started to bleed on the date I was due to have the baby I'd lost. So it was literally the same date. My dates will blow your mind when I talk about dates. So I went straight to the hospital, and they just said, look, it might be too early, we can't see. And it was really, really bad. And I was convinced it was gone. So they said, look, come back. If it is, it is. But come back in 2 weeks. And for that whole 2 weeks, it was 10 full days. It was awful. And I had, in my head, I had myself convinced.
That's it. Don't
have any hope. Don't have any expectations. Just be prepared for them to say, that's it, it's gone. And I remember going in to get the scan, and she had a screen like this, and she just turned it away from me. And I lay and I was crying into the wall. And I just said, like, I don't know how I'm going to take these words again. Like, how do I react? What do I do? I'm on my own again. And next thing I just heard, and she said, oh, we've a little fighter here. They want to stay around. So I've never, I must have left.
What was that like?
Oh my God, it was like an outer body experience. I'll never forget it. To be so convinced of something. So tragic and so sad, and to, again for 2 full weeks to be like, right. And I remember roaring, crying. Carl drove me to the hospital. I remember roaring, crying, just thinking. And he's like, it'll be fine. Look, we've done it before. We'll get through it again. It'll be grand. And I can't even remember. I remember I had to go down the stairs. I couldn't wait for the lift, and I ran down the stairs, and I think I just took all of the stairs. Didn't even touch my foot once out the door, and was like, it's all right. It was just a feeling of pure
ecstatic.
Absolutely.
And the relief that goes with that.
Yeah.
Because I suppose having been through it.
Yeah.
Oh, before just the thought of having.
Yeah, and then also
sadness
saying,
again.
why would I put myself through this again? Like, but I don't even know if there was obviously a little bit of hope inside me saying it will be okay, it will be fine. But yeah, that day I'll never forget it. And I remember ringing my sister and ringing like, everything is fine, and she was like, the relief, and then she's like, okay, so we just have to look after you and just have to make sure that you're okay. And obviously I couldn't see her. She was where she was living, and I went home to my dad, and my dad got on me. He's like, if I moved a finger, what's wrong? What happened? Yeah. So it was under 24-hour surveillance by Carl, my dad, and the kids. But so that pregnancy, again, had everything, had all the things that you could get when you're pregnant, but I didn't care again. And when I had a big scan, it was at 26 weeks, it wasn't 20 because of COVID. The sonographer was kind of a bit funny when she was scanning, and I was like, are the organs or everything? She's like, all the organs are fine, it's just something is just measuring a bit different here. I went home, and then I got a call from the consultant to come in, and of course panic sets in. I was like, oh my God, what's wrong? And she said, oh, it's just his leg is measuring short. I said, all right, yeah, that's grand. He'll have a short leg. That's fine. And she's like,
we'll take a short leg.
So I'm happy out with that. And she's like, no, both of them are. And I was like, okay, it's 2 short legs. This is grand. Carl only takes 29-inch leg. Yeah. He's nearly 6 foot. He'll be fine, And she was like, no, it can be a marker for Down syndrome. Mm-hmm. And I was like, right, okay. So what do I do? And she said, look, if you want to go and have the testing done, the harmony test or whatever it's called, I don't even, I'm great at they're all the things. Amniocentesis. Yeah. And I said, okay, what's that going to do? And she said, well, it'll give you your, if an answer. And I said, well, I don't have a question. I don't actually have a question, and I really don't care if he has Down syndrome. Yeah. He has Down syndrome. Once his heart and his organs are healthy, which you're telling me they are, and she says they're 100%. I said, I couldn't care less. And she said, well, then maybe be prepared, the team, that if there are any, when you're delivering, we might have to do section, or there might need to be a team there just to, if anything goes wrong. And I said, okay. So for that reason was when I decided I'd go and get it. But the day before, I just had this thing in me. I was like, I'm worried that something might happen.
Because I think there
can be risks. Yeah. And I said, look, it's fine. So I cancelled it. Pregnancy went ahead. And there was, I think in my head from that day, I kind of had it that this baby's going to be born with Down syndrome. Because I said she wouldn't say that to me unless she didn't think it. I mean, she's a professional. She knows what she's talking about. But there weren't any other markers visible through a scan. Like the bridge of the nose, the back of the neck, which are all the things that they check. And it's usually the heart, which there can be holes in the heart and stuff like that. So they monitored me really well. But I still always had this little thing in my head that, and I said it to Carl, like, we might have a baby with Down syndrome. And he's like, I don't really care. It's our baby. We're going to love it. That's how the pregnancy went. And there was always loads of little signs. Like I'd opened the paper one day when I was about to go to the hospital, and it was like something to do with people meeting somewhere for Down syndrome. And then I'd walk in, and there's a dad holding his little son. There was all these little things. And I used to think, God, it's just gorgeous, And then when I had him, I went into the hospital. Carl was sent home. They were like, I was in labour, but then it stopped, and they're like, go home. I was due for a section the next day. They said, she'll be fine. Nothing's going to happen until the morning. And then 11 o'clock that night, I was like full blown labour. Doctor's like, do you want to try and have this baby by yourself? I was like, how many kids have you had, mister? He's like, okay. So he got a call to come in, and they were like, we can't wait. I said, just deliver him. I said I couldn't care less if I have him in the field. I don't care if Carl's not here. So I had him by myself. And
sometimes it's easier.
And I said, he doesn't want to see this. But they held him up, and the second I put my eyes on him, I knew he had Down syndrome.
And he's gorgeous.
Oh my God, he is the most beautiful child I've ever met, I've ever seen. And that was the day our lives changed forever, and for the better, all of us. And I say that when I say that, people think, oh, it's our kids as well. We've all changed so much since Gina's come along.
Yeah, and he's so smiley and cute and everything. And he has his own Instagram.
Well, he does. I kind of, he does. Yeah. I set an Instagram up because people were kind of like, we're here for the food, not the baby. And, you know, there's too much baby on this. So I kind of was like, well, sometimes people don't want to look at kids. So I set up a separate page because I loved showing the journey. And there's like, when I had Jean, the amount of women that messaged me saying that they were told similar should I get testing? And I said, I'm not here to give anybody advice. You do what you feel like you have to do. And a lot of those women went on to have children with Down syndrome, and they're like, only for watching you and seeing your gene made
You're giving hope again.
Yeah, and made our journey that little bit easier, because it can be a grieving process for many women and families, because you're grieving the child that you thought you were going to have.
Yeah, and that's normal, and there's difficulty in that as well, because you feel your child isn't dying, your child isn't terminally ill.
No.
Like, and there's a guilt with that.
Yeah.
If your child has something extra, an additional need or whatever, there are moments where you go, what if? But that passes. Yeah. Because you go, they're here.
Yeah. And I didn't get that at all. Yeah. Which I think surprises some people as well. They're like, surely there had, and I was like, I'm telling you now, after everything I went through, I said I didn't. As soon as he came into this world, and my only fear for having Jean was sharing him with the world, because I was in this bubble of love and this bubble of like, he's here, he's healthy, his heart was perfect. That was the most important thing. He's perfect. He was perfect. And I have such a big platform, and if I share this news with people and they go, oh, I'm so sorry, or oh God, that's awful, I'd be fit.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to say it, but I'd be fit to go through somebody for a shortcut.
Yeah.
And it was a full week.
But isn't it awful? You have to think, God, there might be people that will react
and
like
there
that.
are people, and people have reacted that way to me. People I know, and not in my close circle. And I think for me, my fear was to tell my dad, because he was in that age group of people that'd say, "Ah, God love him," and the poor. And I just said, I don't want my dad to say that. I just want him to be like, oh. And I remember that was I'm picking up the phone, the nervous phone call, and I was like, my dad's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? Is everything okay? And I was like, he's here. And I said, he's perfect. And I said, he has Down syndrome. And I said, well, that's it.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, geez, just bring him home so we can start to love him. And that was it. I just knew then. Our lives were just going to be so much better. Yeah. You know? So it was a week before I announced. I told people I'd had him, but that he had Down syndrome again, because I just didn't want that bubble to be burst. But the outpour of love was incredible. And people don't care about the food anymore. They don't care about the cookbooks. They just want to see Jean.
Yeah, and understandably so.
Yeah.
You lost your dad very soon after Jean was born then.
Yeah. So that, again, one of these incredible highs. So I think my dad was obsessed with Jean, like proper obsessed. He'd sit in the kitchen and he'd be drinking his cup of tea and is he going to wake up yet? Is he going to wake up yet? And I'm like, Daddy, leave him alone, will you? Yeah. He's a baby. They sleep forever. But he was just so happy that he was getting to have these first moments, all the firsts with him that he didn't have with any of the other grandchildren. So Jean was born in the November. Beautiful Christmas, New Year's, January, February, and then March, it was the Pancake Tuesday, and I was making my dad pancakes, and I actually shared the video the other day because I was recording it and I'd posted, but I called my dad and I was like, you hungry? And he was like, not today. And I said, oh, that's not like him, because he ate rings around us. He was our chief taste tester for all the books, and for the book he was like, where's the food? So I just went in and I was like, what's wrong? And he just said, will you bring me my baby? That's what he said. And I said, what's wrong with you? He says, I just need to see him. And I put the baby in the bed beside him and I said, what's wrong, Daddy? And he says, I just don't feel very well today. He says, the way he was holding Jean, I knew something was serious. Like my dad never complained, ever. And like he'd colitis, he had lots of different things going on. He was in his 80s, but he never once complained. And I said, will I bring you to the hospital? And he says, I think so. And I said, right. So I rang my brother, and my brother came. And then when my brother got there, he kind of perked up a bit. And my dad is obsessed with cleaning his nails, and his nails always had to be perfect. And he's cutting his nails. I says, would you get in the car? And he's like, I'll be there now in a second. Yeah. So we're driving to the hospital, like, and my brother's there, like, looking at me going, I don't think there's anything wrong with him now. And I was like, no, well, there is if he wants to go. So brought him into the hospital. They checked him, and he had stage 4 liver cancer. So I don't know how long he was living with that. Without saying anything to us, or if he knew, or if it had. I don't think could have got to that stage without him knowing somewhere along the line. So I think for our sake, he was medicating, and then the medication, he was just tired of taking it. He had to just stop. Because when he was in the hospital, he was like, I don't want treatment, I don't want medication, I just want to be comfortable. Yeah. So we gave him that, and I was like, just try something, Daddy. He says, no. He says, I've seen my little man be born, and he says, I've had my time with him, and I've no regrets. So it was 3 weeks later. Wow. Then, so he, on the 21st of March, so I found out I was pregnant on the 21st of March, which is World Down Syndrome Day, believe it or not.
Wow.
So
the year previously.
Yeah, about my dates. So I obviously went on to have Jean, who had Down syndrome, and then World Down Syndrome Day, I brought Jean in to see my dad. So it'd been St. Patrick's Day. We'd kind of had all our celebrations in the hospital with him, and he was so sick, and he was kind of in and out. And I just remember saying, Daddy, Jean's here, and that was his little, and I put his little feet in his hand, and he's just squeezing, and I said, and it's World Down Syndrome Day today, and he just nodded, I know. And I stayed with him that night, and my brother came in the next morning, and I said, Alan, he's gonna go. And he said, he's not, you just go home. And I didn't want to. I always, if anything ever happened, I just wanted to be there, but he insisted I went home. And the minute I got home, he called me, he says he's gone. He says he fought through World Down Syndrome Day. He let Jean have his day, and he told me he didn't want you to be there. He didn't want you to see him go. So that was hard for me, because I always thought I'd be the one that was there saying goodbye. And then I kind of got a bit angry then, because I was like, that was taken. I didn't, It
was taken from you.
Yeah, because my mum passed away when I was 17, and she had a very quick illness. It was 8 weeks from diagnosis to death. But I remember being in the hospital with her and holding her hand, and even though it's hard seeing those last breaths.
Yeah, they're very labour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was I was there when she did it, and it happened. And my sister has migraines, and she had to go and take medication. The doctor's like, look, she'd be fine for a few minutes, just go and take your medication, she needs to eat. And my dad, when we got back, my dad was frantic. He's like, where were you? And we were like, oh, we're just getting a coffee and whatever. And we came into the room, and I says, Mommy, we're here now. And she was unconscious. She was in a coma. She'd gone into a coma the night before, and she just smiled. She just went, wow. The second we walked in the room. The second.
She wanted you there.
She waited and waited, to come back.
Do you find a little bit that, in one way, I mean, it's not easier, but being with your mum, and you were like 17, so you're very young, being with her when she passed away made it easier for you to accept than perhaps because you weren't with your dad?
No.
No.
I think regardless, I know.
Because there, it's sort of like
I was happy. Yeah, I was happy that I was there for my mum. I'm sad that I wasn't there. I think, probably, yes, you're right. It did make it that little bit easier, because I was there for that last. As I always say, she brought me into the world, and I was there when she left. And for my dad, I always thought in my head, because I'd gone through it with my mum, it would always be the same, unless something happened when I wasn't around. If it was a freak accident or something. But I always thought, when my dad is sick, like, I'll nurse him. I'll nurse him till that very last second. And even though I did, technically, because I was there the whole night, like, and I was laughing because there's a chair in the hospital, and it was really squeaky. And my sister insisted on sitting in it and pressing the button, and it'd go back and be right like this. And my brother's like, "Would you stop?" Driving him nuts, right? So she just kept doing it.
Yeah.
And you could see my dad chuckling.
Yeah.
Like, and we made him laugh, and we had such good fun. And there was always the three of us. We were very lucky that the three of us could be in there. And there was moments. This sounds terrible, but it's funny because it's how we deal with things. We laugh that my dad had this really heavy breathing, like, and snore, right? And I was actually shooting the photographs for the third book. And I got a call to say, he's gone. You have to get here ASAP. And it was 25, 30 minutes to the hospital. And I got in and everybody's sitting around going, oh, and I came in and I said, They said, this is it. He's going to go today. So we're all sitting around. So he went, I just stopped breathing. And my sister jumped up, right? She goes, it's okay, Daddy, you can go, right? And he just went, what's wrong with you? He says, I was just yawning, right? And he goes, excuse my language, for fuck's sake, you had me killed off already, right? And so we fell around the place laughing, and he's like, I'm not gone yet, So he was still able to have a laugh and as much pain as he was in. But this kept happening throughout the day, and I was like, don't jump up, don't be like, so for that whole, but he lasted like a week after that, and up until that he was like, she went over there killing me off last week, she was, but I got lovely videos of my dad telling, like, my dad was a real storyteller. And he grew up in, like, he was born in 1939, so he grew up in the 40s and 50s. He met my mum when she was, like, they were very young and got married and all of that kind of stuff. So, but he was a footballer at GAA. He played on the camogie team. He dressed up in a wig. They won the finals, and then the coach or whoever was doing it was like, I was dancing with you last night. So he got kicked off the team. So there was all lovely stories. So it was a tough time, but we made the absolute most of it. And Patrick's Day, he was like, go home, will you, and get drunk. He didn't drink. He hadn't drank in 20 years, and he loved to see us having a drink. Yeah. And I just shook my bag. I says,
it's in here.
So we were like drinking coffee, having a few drinks, celebrating with my dad. So we made the absolute most of it.
That makes it, in one way, you have those memories. Of just the little bits.
The fun
towards the end.
And we still, so those moments where I feel like I always say this, growing up I used to think, what would I ever do if that happened to my mum and dad? And then my mum passed away and I survived. And then I think, oh God, what will I do if that happened to my dad? Because we were so close. And it did, and I survived. And I always say, like, Jean was sent to me. My mother sent Jean to me, because if she didn't, I don't know where I'd be now, because but those moments where I feel like I'm overwhelmed with, like, my dad's gone, and what I just think, that happy time, that the fun me and my brother and my sister had, and the laugh my dad had with us, that just takes away that.
And you can still have that laugh with him.
Still.
Or, about him. Because,
all the time.
And that is what I think gets you through, is being able to sort of have that laugh. Because if there's nothing there, it's a little like...
Yeah, and it sits in you and it festers in you. But I think, like, every meeting or every gathering or every coffee we have or every time we meet up for something, the story is always the same. It's about, you remember when Daddy did this, and you remember, and there was one time he was sitting in the bed and it looked like his legs were like 2 inches long, right? And I drew like these little fake legs, and I showed him the photograph, and the curse is out of me. He's like a sailor, but he was funny, and he's like, what's that? So I send that photo around all the time, and I'm like, lads, do you remember Daddy in the bed? And he looked like he'd no legs, like, So that's how we grieve together as a family. It's the memories and it is fun.
How he'd want to be remembered
himself.
Absolutely.
Oh, he'd go mad if he thought I was sitting at home whinging, like.
And have you found, because obviously now the new book and things are good, have you found that therapeutic? Have you sort of used a lot of the, I suppose, your sadness to sort of into your book to make it sort of a positive thing?
I think what I've ultimately, the last couple of years, has been like living for the kids and living for Jean. And I think it's one thing that I probably do is look after everybody. everybody else, everybody's emotions, everybody's feelings, everybody's needs, wants, and I forget about myself. And when my dad passed away, I threw myself into everything I could throw myself into, whether it was the house, whether it was cooking books, or whether it was TV. I did a lot of TV stuff. And it was like it was a front. I don't know. I never went to therapy or anything like that, so I don't know what it was covering up. But
But you were doing it your way.
Yeah. But I was neglecting myself. So moments where I might feel sad, I was eating more, or I was having a drink, or I was this, that and the other. And ultimately that's not the right way to do. But it was helping me, and it's what I needed to do. And I always say that, like, it's what I needed to do when I needed to do it.
Yeah.
So I was like, all my books were slimming books about like losing weight, and then me coming up the line gaining weight and putting on weight. And sometimes people said, do you feel a pressure of having to look a certain way? And I said, no, I lost that a long time ago. I lost that feeling of pressure, because I can't do things I can't, try and stay slim or try and be losing weight and all this. I just have to do what I have to do now. So it's only in the last month, 2 months, where I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm going through perimenopause here. I feel a bit messed up
for everything.
I feel a bit messed up.
Yeah.
I might go and see the doctor, and then went to the doctor, and she's like, look, we'll do your bloods. And my bloods were like all over the place and stuff. And she's like, we had a big chat like this, and she's like, what do you do for yourself? And I was like, nothing. Nothing. I do everything for everybody else. And I said, now is my time that I have to start looking after myself. So I was like, I'm not going to have a drink anymore. Not anymore, but for now, I'm going to look after my food, what I'm going to be eating. And I think my fear, and this is the only fear I have, is what happens, Jean, if something happens to me.
Yeah.
And that is my biggest fear in the world. And that's the thing that eats me alive. I think. But
you can't live like that either.
No, I can't.
Although it is very difficult.
It's very difficult not to. And I even at this stage, he's only 3. I'm only 44. I have all my ducks in a row. I'm like, if this happens to me, if this happens to your daddy, will you make sure, please don't put him at home. Please don't. Just make sure that he has the life that we're building for him, and that he's independent. And I know he will be. He'll have all the things that he... he's going to be such an independent person. He's going to just absolutely smash the world. But that fear is just because I have him all the time, and he's still only a baby. I don't know what's going to happen, and that eats me alive. So I'm like, I need to be around, and I need to stop sabotaging myself, my health, everything for moments. What are those moments going to get me? Nothing. Make me feel better for a minute. Oh, well, and I think when my mum died, the grieving process for me and my dad was, I couldn't cook, and this is the whole, I laugh, but I have cookbooks. We'd go to a restaurant, or we'd go to a takeaway or something like that, and we'd sit and talk, and we'd have conversations about my mum, and it was always revolved around food. So food was very healing.
It's very yeah,
and
it's the comfort.
Exactly. And the same thing then. When my dad passed away, I was like, let's sit down and all have a meal together, because it was all of us together talking about my dad, talking about all the lovely things, and that healed me. And then there'd be moments where I'd be sitting on the couch and I'd say, I'm not going to cook tonight, we'll get a takeaway. And these things started to happen more and more frequently. And then one day I'm like, oh my God, I'm completely out of breath running up the stairs. Jean wants me to play, but I'm too tired to get up off the floor, and I can't get up off the floor. I'm too heavy to get up off the floor. And that was the moment when I went, I need to cop on. I need to cop on. And it's only been recent, but that's my focus now is just to. But
being kind to yourself.
Very,
at the same time.
But that was what I wasn't being kind to myself. I was treating myself, but I wasn't being kind to myself. If that makes any sense.
No, and there's a difference.
Yeah.
As well.
So now I am being good to myself and kind to myself. Yeah.
Gina, thank you so much.
Thank you
for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Grief Pod with Venetia Quick. You can listen on SoundCloud or wherever you get your podcasts. We also have an online community on Facebook, The Grief Pod, or on Instagram @GriefPod Series.